Hey, it's Fade. So, I want to talk about the mentality that you should have if you're playing a game and trying to get better at it in this video. And I'm going to get a little bit anecdotal perhaps because this is, after all, based on my personal experience. But it's generally going to hold true in most cases. So, first of all, when I did that demo review video, I said that you should always mute voice chat. And that's true. The reason being is that you, for one, need to learn to rely on your minimap. Two, need to learn that until you get to a high level of play, your teammates will not be making reliable calls. And, I mean, I could keep going. Like, for instance, it'll teach you to play off sound cues much more often. It'll even teach you what is an important call to make and what isn't, because sometimes there's information that you could have gotten from your teammates that you couldn't have known any other way. For instance, let's say you're playing A and you're playing A long and your teammate crosses mid and they see nobody's picking from T-spawn like this, right? And they could call nobody picking mid. What this would mean is that it's probably going to be like a heavy long presence or a heavy B presence, but you couldn't know that because sometimes you just don't see it from the minimap, right? So that is a good call out to make, but there are very few things like this. A lot of other callouts are purely based upon, I guess, a hunch, nothing more than a hunch. And those callouts they're informed based upon previous experience in that game or in another game. And people make those callouts because they don't have information, but if they're making it as a good callout, then their callout is not going to hurt you to play around. Okay, so if there's a smoke nade that comes out from tunnels, right, to B site, then somebody makes the call out, there's a couple guys in tunnels. Well, you don't know that there's two guys in tunnels, okay? He doesn't know that. He just saw smoke come out. But if it's a smoke to push onto site, then he's basically making a safe bet. He's saying there's a couple guys in tunnels because he doesn't know how many there are. And by saying there's a couple or there's some in tons, it might discourage your team from trying to flank a single tunnels player. If he calls one through a smoke tons or there's one tons, then your team, it's more of an ambiguous call out in the wrong way because there could be more there. So making the call out saying there's some tons instead of there's one tons is going to discourage your team from trying to, get that frag. Or it's going to make them maybe start playing towards B a little bit when you're pretty certain that they're going to make a B play, right? So that's not necessarily a 100% accurate call out, but it's using an inaccuracy in a way that isn't detrimental. Because you don't know for sure, so it's best to just assume that, there's some in there. So, yeah, but you're never gonna. That stuff's all higher level stuff. Like you can definitely play the game up to almost any skill level you want until you hit like A plus in ESEA or like global in matchmaking or something. I'm not sure how difficult those are relative to each other anymore. I believe A and A plus are much easier to get now than they were when I played because of rank G and stuff. And back then, like global was B plus or something, so global might be like A now. But yeah, so just mute all your teammates just so you don't get tilted. Unbind your chat keys, seriously, and only use your mic to make health callouts. You don't have to do this, but it can be helpful. So I'm going to show you guys how health callouts should work and how they shouldn't work. So okay, I don't remember how many dudes I put. Okay, so notice that none of these guys are exactly the same. Okay, so if I added enough, they would be, and sometimes in a game they are. What this means is, if, let's say this guy is low, let's just not, let's say if I shoot this guy, right? Oh man. Jesus. Okay, well, close-up takes 3 OSP body shots, never knew that. So I shoot this guy twice in the body, let's say he's lit 64. I call the bald dude's lit 64. That's a good call out. Okay, there's one bald guy on their team. So if your teammate sees the bald guy, he can go body shots. Right? But if there's 2, that's a bad call out. Don't make it. Don't even call that one of them is lit. Because what's going to end up happening is your teammate won't be able to differentiate. And it's going to basically mean that your teammate might go for body shots just praying that they get them. Like, that they get that kill. Whereas if you didn't say that, they would play more intelligently perhaps and go for headshots. Because when you say, let's say it's a 1v2 and you tell your teammate one's lit, like 90, your teammate, the first guy they see, there's a very good chance that they're just going to try to shoot them in the body and kill them that way. Because they're like, oh, he might just have 10 HP, 50-50 chance. But the fact is, like, the first guy your teammate sees is probably not going to be the one with low HP. Because the guy with low HP is probably going to be hiding or baiting. So I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. The guy with the low HP should actually get baited by his teammate for a trade frag, or hold an angle, crossfire. But I'm just saying what's usually going to happen in matchmaking. Usually the low HP guy's going to be playing like a pussy, and that's that. So if you're going to make an HP call out, make sure to make it in a way that your team can easily differentiate between like which is which. I always say like dark headscarf, light headscarf, black dude, bald dude, or yeah, hairy. I don't know, but you get what I'm saying, right? You have a way of making that call out so that your team doesn't shoot the wrong dude in the foot and expect a kill. Now, as far as another aspect of this game goes, like mentality-wise, there's a reason you're in the rank you're in, right? Let's say you don't play the game enough, right? You might be at the skill level of an MGE, but you don't play enough, so you're Nova 4, okay? Let's say you're at the skill level of a Nova 4, and you play a shitload, so you're not promoting, okay? There's a ton of situations like that. Everyone has those sorts of situations. That's how the game's ranking system works, you know? I could probably solo queue to global in a month or so, you know, like 50, 60 games, but I don't have the time for it, so I'm MGE right now, right? But you have to realize that you're the common denominator in all of your games, and I know this is like beating a dead horse. Tons of people are going to say this to you, but it's true. If you are performing consistently and consistently above average in all your games at any skill level, so let's say like no matter what game you're put into, you perform above average for that game, no matter how good the other team is, you would be the best pro player in the world. Okay? End of story. That's how significant performing above average is. If you could guaranteed every game go like 1-for-1, you'd be one of the best players in the entire world. Okay? So, because no matter how bad your team is doing, you're at least going 1-for-1. You're like, it's just a fact. So, by performing above average and being that common denominator in a good way, you're going to rank up. But if you're not ranking up, it's because you are the common denominator. You are not performing like well enough to rank up with the amount of games you're playing, or you're performing so badly that you can't rank up. So if one case you need to play more games and you'll rank up, other case you need to get better and you'll rank up. Okay? And the better you are, the less games you need to play to rank up, right? But long story short, it's your fault if you're not ranking up, and you either need to get better or play the game more. And I would suggest getting better. That's just getting better saves your time, saves other people's time. You are going to win games faster. So yeah. Another thing, when you're given, this is the last thing I think, when you're given advice from another player in MM, think about it logically and ignore your own ego, okay? Because egos are like a huge factor in online games. The anonymity of the internet allows people to be as dickish as they want, say things that you know they would never say to your face, whether or not you're some giant 6'5" basketball player, right? Or like a small 15-year-old kid. People just wouldn't say it to your face in a lot of cases because it's like road rage, right? A lot of times there's no consequences. So that being said, it doesn't mean that the things they say aren't necessarily are wrong. Okay, so the best example I have of this, I was in a game with Mo and Freakazoid in ESEA, and because like at that level, like there wasn't a whole lot, so it tried to like match the teams equally, and usually if you were like A plus with decent RWS and shit, like you'd end up being put with like pro players. So pro players was kind of like a nightly occurrence in that rank. Still is, I'm sure. But anyways, so I get put in a game. Mo and Freakazoid are on my team, and like full disclosure, neither of them are the best players in the world, but they were definitely better than me. You know, I mean, one was a former pro player and the other was like semi-pro, and one of the better oppers in NA at one point. So like, definitely good players. They did have a leg up on me, but if you don't know about Mo, he's a very toxic individual. Okay, he's one of the most abrasive personalities in the professional CS:GO or in the upper echelon of the CS:GO scene. He's a personality, right? He's not like a pro player, but he's a personality. So because of his personality, when he gives people advice, they often don't listen to him. They just write him off as a toxic douchebag. Well, I try not to do things like that, and this is why. So it was a huge learning experience for me. It was one of like the biggest light bulb moments I've ever had in CS:GO, and it's going to sound like not a huge deal, but maybe one day, like if it happens to you, you'll get it. So I was CT spawn, and I was playing long with Mo. So Mo had an op, obviously, because that's what Mo does, and I had an M4. So I'm running long, and he's behind me, and he doesn't say anything. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go play pit, and he's like, all right. So we start crossing. I get flashed, right, and then I wait until I'm not blind, and then I peek out and I die, and then Mo peeks out and gets a kill and he dies, and he just fucking rages at me, dude. Like, he just flips out. And remember, I'm like a decently rated player in ESEA at this point. Okay, like I'm not total hot trash, but the thing is, there's a huge gap between being like an aim whore that basically just taps heads and has some game sense, and like an ex-pro player as far as like game knowledge and stuff is concerned. So when I did this, Mo was like, dude, what are you fucking doing? Like, you need to let me bait you until you get to pit, then you can actually do something. But if you get fucking blind, you keep running, because I will kill them while you distract them, and then when they go to kill me, you're in pit, you're not blind anymore, and you kill them when they're pushing me. That's how this works. You need to fucking do it, right? And I mean, he was obviously a lot more impolite than that, and he was yelling as loud as he could and shit, so it was just a very unpleasant way of saying things. But I listened to him because I realized, you know, like, this guy might be kind of an asshole, but he's better than me, and he's got the experience to make these statements. So I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna do it. So the next round, it wasn't like Mo said, "I'm not gonna play long with you anymore." You know, that's a fucking childish thing to do. He said, "All right, let's go. You got it this time." So, and again, he's being toxic about it, but he's still being somewhat supportive. So I ran out. I got fucking blind. I just hopped over to pit. You know, I wasn't blind anymore. They started pushing out. Mo had 2 kills already. 3 kills for me. Round over. We killed all 5 of them. And then it was like, you know, the biggest fucking congratulations ever, right? Because that's how Mo is. You do something right, he's really fucking happy. You do something wrong, he gets really pissed. But I just ignored that kind of shit, and it was more like, I got this piece of advice, you know? You have a good opper, and they're holding your corner for you, and they're turning the flash. You know, it's your job not to turn the flash, because if there is no flash, then you can cross and take a fight, and then the opper can peek and help you. And if you cross and there is a flash, the opper's not blind, you run across, the opper peeks and saves you, right? That's how it works. And it was a big deal, but the fact that it came from Mo means that a lot of people would have just ignored it, right? Because of the way that he said it, his delivery is not the most tactful. So this same thing goes for if there's a guy on the other team and he's not cheating, but he's nutty and he's shitting on you, and you do something and he's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing there? You know, maybe you should actually look at what the fuck you were doing there, right? Because he's saying you shouldn't be there. I killed you because you were in a shitty spot doing something stupid, right? One more example and then I'll end the video. My first game ever in Supreme, and this was like 3 years ago. It took me a total of, I want to say, a few months to hit global from my starting rank, which was like silver 3. And then, because I already had a competitive FPS experience, so it took me a few months to hit global. And I was playing with Supremes and Globals the whole way, so like I was learning very quickly because the people I played against were at that level already. And so this whole time, like, even solo queue, I still felt like I was tough shit, right? And so I get promoted to Supreme, and I'm like, I'll just get global tonight, no problem. I run into upper tunnels as a CT, right? Just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go kill some dude, right? I'm dead. Instantly dead. 1 bullet. I didn't even get a chance to shoot. The guy was standing right here, and he was just waiting for me. Like, just holding this passive angle, right? I'm dead. Didn't matter how fast I was. The first thing the guy said to me is, dude, this is fucking Supreme. You can't rush tunnels and expect to get away with it. And now, that would, if I heard someone say that, I would look at it as like a fucking meme. Because the truth is you can do that in Supreme, you just have to know how to do it, right? You can do that in A+, and as long as you know how to do it, alright? But running through the tunnels, fucking stomping like an elephant, right? And then just wide peeking, that's not how to do it, okay? So at the time, like, he didn't know that you could do that well. He was probably barely more experienced in the game than I was, right? But it was still, for me, like, holy shit, dude. Like, I've never been punished that hard in my life, you know, like, in, like, the 2.5 months or 3 months I'd played the game, nobody had dumpstered me like that before. Like, my friend straight up, when my friend who was global, he straight up told me, when I first started playing, all right, dude, don't buy nades, don't buy ops, and don't bother walking. Just run around with a fucking rifle and kill everybody, and do that till you're global. Then you can worry about other shit. And I listened to him, so that's how I was playing. I didn't op, I didn't use nades, I didn't shift walk. And I got to global that way. But it was a huge learning experience for me, because then once I started trying to walk and shit, my gameplay got, you know, much worse. But you have to know when to walk like that, or when to run, and all that kind of stuff. So, but when this guy gave me this advice, it was like super, he was a dick about it, right? He was basically calling me a fucking retard. It was still good advice. So I listened, and I tried to adapt my gameplay to figure out another way of dealing with him, and I did that, right? I don't remember if we won the game or not, but definitely helped me out. Like, I took it to heart and I listened. So just don't let your ego get in the way of shit. You know, if somebody gives you advice, fucking take the advice if it's good advice, and look at your gameplay objectively. Don't, like, if you, there's 2 ways of dying in this game. There's getting outshot, and then there's making a bad play. Okay, if you get outshot but you made a good play, that's totally acceptable. That's how pro players generally die. All right, they just get outshot. They don't win their gunfight. But if you make a bad play and make good shots and you get away with the bad play, that's actually not a good play still. It doesn't matter that it worked. It's still a bad play. So it's better to get, like, punished for a good play and know that it was a good play and do it again anyway, even though you got punished, than it is to not get punished for a bad play and not know that it was a bad play, and then get punished every other time because it worked that one time, right? Yeah, I don't know. This was a little ranty, but hopefully it makes some sense to people. Just remember, like, don't be toxic, and try to take advice no matter how, you know, it's given to you, I guess. And peace out.